So I'm a very emotionally technical guy, which means I'm pretty emotionally inclined, but I like to view it in a more logical sense. Like, I like numbers, I like quantification, anything that kind of explains emotions in other ways. I wanted to use this approach to identify the stereotypes of Drake and Josh. There's a term I heard recently in adult sitcoms called flanderization. It's where you start off with complex characters that end up getting more flanderized, as in more like the stereotypes that made them work in the first place. It's like when you fix a product to take out all the bad parts of it until it's the perfect product. And it's a lot harder to do, it's a lot more noticeable in human-like characters because we don't really reduce people to single traits. Except for Drake and Josh. I feel like it is the definition of something that got flanderized. And as I was going over the best and worst episodes, I was able to pick out exactly the moments that I felt like they realized all this stuff worked. And so I kind of wanted to go through that with you guys. For me, the goal is to see where the show was originally headed, and then kind of figure out where it ended up due to the audience reception. I feel like the first season is always doing of the writers, because they're the ones filling in the blanks for you, but then over the course of the show, the actors are the ones who take on the characters. So it's more so a different field. For example, we're gonna start with Drake and Josh today. So Drake starts out as a cool guy from the first season, but then by the fourth season, I feel like he was flanderized to be just an idiot, a simpleton, somebody without guitar goals, and just... It's hard to imagine how this guy goes about his daily life. Like, he's so incompetent, not knowing what New Jersey is, like, it got a little ridiculous. Josh, on the other hand, started out as a nerd from the first season, and then ended up just being a sarcastic jerk by the end of the fourth. And this was the way they worked as a buddy comedy. It was a good plan, and it only served them because the final season was the best season. If anything, it shows that the writers weren't as good as the actors involved.
Time for snacking! Little Tiberius meat! Sucker! Okay, Drake, come now!
But here I can pinpoint exactly where it went wrong, and I could tell the arc. So let's start with Drake. First, using the episode 2 Idiots and a Baby as an example, Drake is the cool guy in the first season. He comes into the pilot, he's got a reputation to uphold, he's taking things seriously, and it's jarring after watching the fourth season. He tends to be a little bit more manipulative, almost even smarter than Josh, taking all of these tactics to get what he wants in a way that Josh is not really able to see at first. I didn't notice he was so underhanded and kind of ruthless until the baby episode where it was clear he was so willing to go far. Then in the second season, he becomes more of a con man, and I can't find a better example than Pool Shark. You know, it kind of takes the manipulation from the first season, and he almost gets a little bit snarkier. He's not getting stupider yet. He's just becoming a little bit more of an issue. He's putting reputation before Josh. He puts his own needs before his family's. His character is really consistent with the selfish trait. But for the most part, the comedy comes with him being the straight man, which is even weirder because he's not going to always be the straight man. In Pool Shark, Josh is actually the one who pulls out a trick, and Drake gets even more serious. He gets more panicked, like a sense of responsibility, which really reminds me of how Josh ends up. This is why this episode stood out to me so much. Like, can you imagine a fourth season Drake trying to pull something like this? I feel like it wouldn't be as realistic. We get ounces of him being a player, like being good with women, and that's always from the get-go, but I feel like we see it a lot more starting with the third season. In the third season, I feel like he transitions from cool guy to con man, and now he's more of a player, where they actually make the plot lines a lot more heavy on him being around girls. You see a lot more girls in his life, he kisses them, it's a lot more focused on that. The Drake and Josh in is a good example. I feel like you notice the easiest trait difference in the Drake and Josh in because he's trying to be a con man like he kind of was in the second season, but he leaves that in favor for more party-like tendencies. Like, he wants to have a good time, he wants to fill up the house with more people, but he also is a little bit more irresponsible. Like, he lies to his parents, he makes this whole thing go too far. He even gets the Mexican robot, which is really funny. We start to see a little bit more of his stupidity, but I still feel like the third season is more about him getting girls and the consequences of that. Like, another example would be like Yuka. When Josh has that pen pal come into town, he starts a whole situation with her just because he likes her. And I feel like season 1 Drake would not do something like that. Like, if anything, Josh was the ditzy one in that season. Then we go to the fourth and final season, which everybody knows him best for, and I'm not surprised. I feel like it's definitely one of the strongest seasons. Like, even though they flanderized the characters and got them down to a science, it's almost to its own benefit. They knew exactly what worked and what to drop before going to the final season. And Drake ended up being an idiot. I don't even know how else to boil down his personality, except for, like, he is almost a one-dimensional, stupid character. Like, a character that doesn't know anything that's going on. A character that's kind of like Gibby from iCarly. Like, one that is almost not deserving of being the main center of the episode. I feel like in an episode like Eric Punches Drake, you see a little bit of his grit, and he stands up for himself a little bit more, but for the most part, we're thinking episodes like Treehouse, Wedding, like, there's 5 episodes that are all about them being stuck, and guess how Drake and Josh go about it. Yeah, Drake is definitely the imbecile in the situation. Before, he was advocating to get out of bad scenarios, and now he's the one that's not only causing them, but becoming the major inconvenience that stops them from getting anywhere. Okay, then we get to the really interesting stuff when we actually get to Josh and kind of cross-compare them. So the first season, Josh starts out as a nerd. I think the most memorable moment is the pilot, when he's willing to dress up like a woman just to answer all these Ask Nancy columns. Like, he's desperate to fit in, he's kind of a people pleaser, which is nothing compared to the fourth season, when he's literally like this sarcastic, passive-aggressive, resentful guy. And you don't see that in the Ask Nancy column. Like, you don't see Josh being like, Drake, where's the column?
What? Where's the door hole?
You know, like, it's so different. Obviously, we have Josh's grandma, which is another moment that he is coming across as the nerd. He cares about his game sphere. Like, it's very, he's a gamer in the beginning. Then we get to season 2, when he becomes more of a victim. And he was a victim in the first season, like, a lot of bad things happened to him, but it didn't necessarily affect him too bad until, like, the Blues Brothers. And once Josh starts getting hated, that trope is never ignored again. Like, think about Josh runs into Oprah, think about all these other moments where Josh is the center, the theater thug. Like, Josh is the center of being bullied, and that's just the way the show crumbles. It's also really funny because Drake being the con man in season 2 definitely leads Josh into complicated situations. I feel like they always unintentionally write these characters to oppose each other, which is super funny. I mean, it works really well in the comedic sense, although the growth is all over the place. I feel like they regress and then they get better and then they regress again. Like, this show is on such a non-linear path. So after the nerd from season 1, Josh becomes more of the victim in season 2. But I would say, despite the fact he keeps all those traits, season 3, he's more positive. He's more like a mentor. He has a lot of moments of optimism, like specifically when he becomes Sammy's older brother. Like, he seems to see the good in people a whole lot more. It's definitely his moral peak. So next time you're checking out of a Costco and the cashier asks you what Josh Peck's peak was on Drake and Josh, it's season 3. It just feels like such a dynamic character. It's like more developed as opposed to Drake, who got a little bit more flanderized. And Josh will inevitably be a lot more flanderized by season 4 with some of the nerd traits being dropped, but for the most part, he remains intact. If anything, it's almost like they didn't know what to do with Drake's character, so they put him in a different situation until something worked out. And I can't believe how long they got away with that. Like, we look at this show and we're like, wow, that was like perfect. But really, it was like all over the place in terms of the traits they had the characters on. It makes me feel like they didn't even think it through when they went to each season. They just went on. But I mean, obviously it got a lot of acclaim, so it's not like that's a bad thing. They made it work really well. So yeah, let's go over the facts. So in the first season, we have Drake being the cool guy, Josh being the nerd. Second season, Drake becomes more of a con man, Josh becomes a victim. And then the next season, Josh is a big mentor, Megan's teacher, and then Drake is a player. So he's more focused on girls while Josh is seeing a bright future. And that's when the resentment comes in season 4. Josh becomes sarcastic and Drake leans into being an idiot. And then all of this is seen in the Stuck episodes, like the 5 episodes where it's just them going back and forth. It's hard not to judge them based on that. Like, Josh is so sick of what he's dealt with in the previous seasons that it just feels like his tolerance for Drake is so much lower. I mean, obviously we could talk about Josh's Done, the most dramatic episode of this entire series, and he is such a shadow of himself in that episode. Like, he's not peppy, he's not optimistic. Even though good things are happening to him, it's almost like he naturally rejects it because he's, not worthy of it. It's all these issues he had before of seeing himself as the victim, the nerd. That's just how the character was, and it's not his fault. That's the way it was written. So yeah, Drake and Josh definitely became a little bit more Flanderized than they started out. Oh, but don't hold your breath, because we're gonna go to the parents and Megan. Megan's interesting because I feel like in season 1 she was so young, but she was more devious. We saw her a lot more prominently in Two Idiots and a Baby, the same way we saw Drake, and she was helping the boys out for the first time. She played an active role in the plot, and I feel like you could tell that she was definitely not having the best intentions for them. She was leading them down the wrong path, but then she eventually came through and actually cared about helping her brothers. So I would say she was devious, but she definitely had a sweet side. And then season 2 is when she just became a straight up bad kid. Season 2, she was still really young, especially compared to Drake and Josh. Her character felt underdeveloped. They didn't even know yet that they wanted her to be evil. They just started her out as devious in the first season. And now it's just straightforward, she's a bad kid. I'm thinking about the number 1 fan episode, the one that was banned. Yeah, you guys can watch my video on that. But she, leads the Campfire Girls into attacking Walter. So it's almost like they didn't even want her to be subtly evil yet. They just had her doing crazy things before they figured out what the craziness would be. Season 3 is when they really dove into it. I feel like at end of season 2 was when they figured it out, but by the episode Megan's Revenge, everything is so clear. Not only is she evil, she's devious, a bad kid, and wants the worst intentions for Drake and Josh. She goes out of her way to gaslight them at every corner, and she tries to maintain a perfect image in front of the parents, which I don't know why she wasn't afraid to lock Walter into one of the tents, but now she's somehow hiding full computers within her wall. It's just such an obvious skip, but I think it was necessary. It definitely needed to happen in order to get half the jokes we got. And then by season 4, I feel like she just ends up being psychopathic. Before, she's an evil, devious, bad kid, but straightforward, she gets psychopathic in the last season. I'm thinking Megan's first kiss, when she's talking about, murdering Drake and Josh in her one-off jokes. Before she was, quirky and fun, and, all of this was out of joy, but then she gets committed. And that's where it gets scary for Megan. She gets psychotic in that last season. And it's only in the small things she does. The big episodes we remember were focused on Drake and Josh. We didn't get a lot of Megan, but the way she goes in the treehouse by torturing them for not eating. In Battle of Panthatar, she goes to the party without them, of their own friend, and it seems like she's genuinely not concerned with putting them in harm's way. I definitely feel like, and I didn't go over this on my channel yet, that the turning point of that was Drake and Josh Go Hollywood, which was definitely in the mid of the second season, and I feel like that's where they got a lot of personality out of her by making her the main part of a larger special. Clearly they had to figure her out a little bit more to justify the actions of getting on a plane, going somewhere else, and it's so cool how she goes from one trait to the other so naturally. I feel like none of us really noticed an arc with Megan, but when you actually look into the episodes that feature her, it's a lot clearer. The parents are a little bit easier. I feel like I couldn't even separate them. Just their attitudes and how they went about their family was all over the place as well. Like, if we dive into specific episodes, in the first season, they were super optimistic. Like, they wanted to be together. They were so excited to bring Drake and Josh together when they blended this family, and everything was positive. Even with the two babies, the two idiots and a babies episode was mainly them being supportive and trusting the boys, which is very short-lived, because season 2 is when Drake becomes more of a con man and Josh becomes more of a victim, and they actually have to be involved a little bit more. I'm thinking like the foam finger episode, yeah, like that's when they get a little bit fed up with Drake and Josh and become a lot more annoyed. Like, suddenly they're solving all of their problems for them. Like, Drake and Josh just somehow can't have any conflict resolution between the two. Like, oh wait, they do get a therapist at the end of season 3 with the Dr. Phyllis show. But yeah, Walter and Audrey, like, they're so positive in the beginning, then they start getting annoyed, and then straight up when Mr. Doheny comes in, they become a lot more impatient. Like, I feel like they're very quick to judge Drake and Josh for everything. Everything is their fault. There is no optimism about being in this family. It's like, nope, this is a requirement and you guys have to get along. Which, if you saw everything they did up until this point, makes a lot of sense. It's fair for them to get annoyed at their kids. I feel like season 4, they actually mirrored Josh a little bit and had this, like, resentment of how often Drake and Josh would take advantage of them. Like, they ended up in so many bad situations because of them. Like, I'm even thinking the Demonator, when they left for one night and Drake and Josh irresponsibly let their grandfather run loose. Yeah, that was definitely a low blow. And the parents, like, almost get a little optimistic by the end of it, but then they jump right back down into being fed up. And then by the 4th season, I'm thinking like Steered Straight specifically, the episode where Drake and Josh are given to that police program to get them scared to go to jail one day, was the catalyst for just Walter and Audrey no longer wanted to deal with Drake and Josh. Like, they were like, oh, get them out of the house. And I kind of agree, like, they were so flanderized by that point. But I feel like the parents were such good actors, they didn't even let themselves get flanderized. Like, they had a little bit of all these moments throughout the whole show, and it's kind of impressive. Maybe because it's easier to, like, write a stereotypical version of parents. It was just easy for everybody the whole time. But for me, I'm like, no, that takes some good actors to actually convince us that they're feeling all these things. Like Drake and Josh, they could have been really good up since the beginning if they knew how the rest of the series would play out, but who in the world could have known that? Who in the world could have guessed what would have been hilarious, not hilarious, Josh being a victim, Drake being a con man? Like, it just naturally worked itself out, as the way it does in writing, and I like that a lot. That's why I like being a writer. It's nice to get to nitpick some of this stuff because it makes a lot more sense when it comes back to my thoughts about iCarly or Zoe 101. All of the shows started out a very specific way where they're like, this is the world, this is the characters, this is what we want to happen. And then they have that breakout episode that gets a little too far and they're like, yep, the bar is a lot higher, we have to go crazier next time. And iCarly got really crazy with that. I feel like the flanderization was at like a 10. Like, it started the first 2 seasons where the characters really caring about getting this web show going, promoting good ideas, avoiding negativity, like almost like setting the social standard for their grade and not taking advantage of that. And then the second half of the show is all about taking advantage of that. It's everything that was like good about all the characters is just thrown out the window in a way that makes it easier for them to just tell jokes. With the characters being so simple, they then had to get back into more complicated plot lines, but sometimes that didn't work. I'm looking at you, I go one direction. And next thing you know, you don't even know what you're watching anymore. It's a skit show with characters that kind of have an idea what they want, but for the most part, they're just reacting to life, and they're either snooty about it or resentful, and I could see that in a lot of these shows. I do feel like Drake and Josh is an example of right at the peak of all of this, right between where they got really good writers and then right before they got really great actors, and then they kind of rode off the actors' coattails, just let those characters write themselves. Like, I liked it when they had more of a helm on what they wanted them to be, but obviously TV is not about getting one or the other, it's about trying to interweave both of them. It's kind of how I see my musicals, like trying to interweave lyrics with melodies, with scenes, with characters. Like, there's just so many roles at play you can't get them all perfect. And when you see a show go on for so long, to actually watch that unfold in front of you, it's almost like a test dummy. Like, you get to see how quickly characters can change based on the plots and how it affects them in relation to the length of the show. There's just a lot less control when you add more factors to different mediums like this. And I really like it. I like there's like a push and pull where the writer is kind of the gatekeeper and the narrator in the story, and the actors are just trying to do what's best, and they came up with a legacy product. Like, Drake and Josh took Nickelodeon to new levels that we only realize are so intense in 2025. Like, people are still talking about this show. It's just as praised as some of the shows I grew up with, like Big Bang Theory, 2.5 Men. Like, sitcoms, they're starting to become a shorter line in between them. Therefore, we're taking them all just as seriously as one another. And so the flanderizing issue is just across all boards. And so it's not like just specifically iCarly and Drake and Josh suffered with this. This is just something that goes on in writing in general. And if you're interested enough to click on this video, I'm sure you're interested enough to care about that stuff. I don't know, though. For me, sometimes it's just fun to rewatch this stuff and actually look back. But like I said, I'm more about finding a way to put the emotional ideas into quantitative forms so we could actually talk about them and explain where things were going. Of course, all of this is extrapolated. Like, you could make up an argument for anything. You could notice the scenes that I didn't notice in these specific seasons that would define the character for you and completely contradict what I'm thinking, and I would love to see your video on that. Remember, guys, anybody can have a YouTube channel, so if you feel strongly talking about or commenting on these things, stop complaining in my comments, make your own videos. It's actually really fun and easy, and I feel like if you just stumble your way through it like I did, I learned stuff that I cared about talking about, and that's these characters, these episodes, these exciting features. I just have so much fun with teen TV. If I had to go over another show character-wise with the episodes that changed their arcs, what shows would you guys want to see? Would you want to see Zoe 101? Would you want to see Hannah Montana again? Just leave your comments down below, and I thank you guys so much for watching me talk so long once again. This is Johnny 2000s, and for all your 2000s movies, media, TV, and so much more, come on down, guys. Okay, see you next time.